The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family of St. Peter's. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within your holy church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning. I want to welcome you to breakfast and to this opportunity we have for conversation. This is a continuation of some discussions and conversation that we've been having over the last several weeks, and is this there? We go. So if you haven't been part of those, it's okay. Each has been intended to stand on its own. But I've called this "Called by God to Serve," and our focus has been on the various ways in which God does call, and is calling each of us in the church and in this church into some form of ministry, whether we know it or not. So I wanted to take a few minutes today just to continue to hold up a few things that I want you to think about, that I want us to think about, and hopefully to continue to have some conversation about. This comes from the Catechism of the Church that's found in the back of the Book of Common Prayer. Some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may be very familiar with it. Some of you may not have looked at it for a long time or ever. So if you haven't looked at it, I invite you to take a look at it and read through it. The Catechism is just a fleshing out of what we say that we believe when we recite either the Nicene Creed or the Apostles' Creed. And one part of the Catechism talks about the ministry of the church. And it specifically says that the church carries out its mission through all of us. All of us. All ministry, all members of the church are responsible for and have a role to play in the ministry of the church. And then the question is asked, who are the ministers of the church? And you'll see that the ministers of the church are identified in four ways: laypersons, bishops, priests, and deacons. And so that what's referred to as being the fourfold order of ministry is something that we adhere to and that we hold up in our tradition. It's also something that is part of the Roman Catholic tradition. But it is intentional that the first of those who are mentioned in this fourfold order of ministry are you, most of you who are sitting out here today. As I have been pointing out, as I like to point out, as I think it's important to point out, there are only two people in this room this morning in this crowd who fit into a category other than this, and that is Sally Weaver, who's back there, and me as priest. So as you can see in this large crowd, most of you fall in this category, which is obviously not unusual. What is the ministry of the laity? What is your ministry? Your ministry is to represent Christ and His church, to bear witness to Jesus wherever you may be, and according to your gifts, to carry on the work of reconciliation in the world, and to take your place in the life, worship, and governance of the church. Okay? So that's what you all of us have an opportunity to do, but specifically, this is what you as the laity are asked to do and asked to consider doing in a variety of ways, either here at our church, in the community, as part of the Diocese of Missouri, whatever. What is the duty of all Christians? The duty of all of us, we are asked to follow Jesus, to come together for corporate worship as we're doing here today, and to work and to pray and to give for the spread of the kingdom of God. So that's what that's who we are to be about. No matter what our what kind of a mission statement we might come up with, no matter what kind of visioning work we might do, ultimately this is what our responsibility and our duty is. It's a little slow this morning. This is something that comes from the Episcopal Church, from what's called the Dictionary of the Episcopal Church. And it talks about how it is that the ministry of the laity, lay ministry, is exercised within the church as a gathered body, as we're doing today, in a variety of ways, whether it be for worship, for education, for Bible study, through committee work, through the work of the vestry, and also in a scattered way. In the various places in which your lives and my life takes place, at home, out in the grocery store, out in the community, at work, in places where you might volunteer. So this gathered concept of coming together and then scattering is one of the ways in which our ministry and your ministry takes place. While those of us who are ordained as clergy have a particular role to play, I obviously have a particular role that I play as a priest and as the rector of St. Peter's. Sally Weaver has a particular role that she plays as a priest and as someone who has been helping us here and who does work with other churches in our diocese in a variety of ways. All of our ministry should focus on how it is that we fulfill the mission of God. How it is that we carry out our ministry for the fulfillment of what God is calling each of us to do. So, what I want to do today is give several people here, 4 people who are involved in a variety of things and have been involved in a variety of ways in exercising their ministry here at St. Peter's. An opportunity, I want to give them an opportunity to share a little bit about themselves, about why they feel called to ministry, as a way of holding up the ministry that all of us, again, have an opportunity to do. I think this is important because I want to continue to encourage us to think about how we engage here at St. Peter's and the various opportunities that there are to engage either through existing ministries or through the possibilities of creating new ministries. But most importantly, I just want to emphasize and hopefully prod us all into thinking a little bit more about how it is that God is pushing on us, calling out to us, and sometimes almost forcing us into doing things that sometimes we just don't want to do, or that we don't think we're able to do, or qualified to do. Because I think it's so important, especially right now. So I want to have you all, I have some questions that I'm going to ask these 4. But before I do, I'm going to give them a chance just to introduce themselves. And for those, hopefully everybody knows everybody, but I've learned that that's not always a safe assumption. So I'm going to let them just introduce themselves. And I'll say to the 4 of you, if there's something up here if I miss something that you're involved in, you can just please add it.
Morning. I'm Ann Babington. I've been a member of St. Peter's since I was 5. My parents at the time lived out in the country with my grandparents, and they drove an hour every morning into St. Peter's because of their love for Bill Laird. And I think so much of what I do, I followed in my parents' footsteps. Things that they did in the church.
Thank you, Ann. Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire O'Brien. I have been at St. Peter's for the last 4 years, so we joined before I had my first daughter. I have a 3.5-year-old and then a 1.5-year-old. I'm involved, I serve on the vestry. Currently, I'm junior warden of the vestry, and then I am on the breakfast team. And yeah, we go to a lot of the movie nights they have here, a lot of the kind of the youth-oriented activities. So.
Good morning. My name is Dwayne Traynor. I know most of you, but I'm not an 8 o'clocker, so there may be a couple of people that I don't know. But it's so great to see you all this morning. I'm so glad we're together to have this breakfast again. It's so great to see your smiling faces in this room alive again. So I've been involved in St. Peter's in many different ways. My husband and I moved to St. Louis from Atlanta in 2013 and joined St. Peter's pretty quickly. We were beginning to think that we weren't going to find a church home. We just weren't finding any place that we really felt welcome and felt that connection. And we finally found St. Peter's, and then I got in the car. I was like, I could see us being there. And Mark says, yep, I feel that as well. And so we dived in. The first thing I did was get into the choir, and then, took a little sabbatical from the choir to do some other stuff. Did Altar Guild, still do that. Did the food ministry through St. Peter's Cares. I've also been involved at the diocesan level doing the diocesan ministerial ministry, a diocesan delegate. So a little bit of everything. I have a hard time saying no. And it's been a little weird adjusting to just being in the choir again and doing the occasional altar guild after being junior and senior warden through some rough times at St. Peter's. I mean, who knew when Ginger Dutton said, oh, we need you to be junior warden. It's a piece of cake. You don't even have to do buildings and grounds. And then, Jenny Davis and I show up to meet with Luke for the first time as the new junior and senior wardens. And Luke is like, I'm thinking about retiring from St. Peter's. And then a couple of months later, COVID hit. So, but my sense of duty at the church has been instilled for me from when I was a child and seeing how my parents were involved in the church. I am not, get ready to gasp, clutch your pearls, I am not a cradle Episcopalian. I was raised Church of God in the South, so an evangelistic kind of tradition, and we lived at church. Church was our life. If I wasn't at school or sleeping or eating dinner at home, we were at church every night of the week, and really that's where you saw the work of the church being carried out by the lay people. And it's been an interesting adjustment coming into the Episcopal Church where that's not, I mean, it's really hard to get Episcopal folks to show up at church after the morning service on Sunday. It's kind of like that one and done. And so that's been interesting. I mean, my role is just, if the church doors are open, I try to be there. I mean, it's my duty. And when I see a need or, just jump in and help, that's how, and it enriches my own experience. I mean, St. Peter's has given Mark and I so much. It just feels like an obligation to give back to this amazing parish and the people that we love and that have welcomed us. So I'll hush now, too much.
Breakfast team, okay. Hello, those of you if I haven't met anyone, I'm Jimmy Grimmett. I've been going here, I think, since 2011, the last time the Cardinals won. Let's do it again this year. When I first started coming here, I just wanted to, I was brought here by Amanda. She sings in the choir. So I would just come whenever she would say, hey, I'm doing something special. Can you come watch me? I'm like, sure. So when I got here, I grew up in the Methodist faith until I was in high school. So then I switched to Catholic faith. So it was really close, so I liked it. I was like, okay, I like this. I can get in, get out, especially 8 o'clock service. You guys all know it. So then I started going. People started talking to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm all in. So when I said I was all in, I started going to Bible study. Whenever after breakfast, I would always see John over there. He was usually the only one picking up chairs and tables and all that stuff. So I said, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm young, and I can do that. So, and then I just started getting asked to do other things, and it's really hard for me to say no. So I normally don't say no. So let me see. I think one thing that's missing there, I am a delegate as well. I'm also in the Racial Reconciliation Committee that is usually headed by the Claggets. They're doing a lovely job. Everyone needs to come and, back to the Racial Reconciliation Committee. And I just think I got my service from, I think, growing up in Bowling Green, Missouri, because it's a small community. So you kind of have to pitch in and make it work. Also a farming community, you really have to pitch in and make it work. So I just love, I guess, being in service here at St. Peter's, and hopefully we can do more. David's done a great job with the vestry. We break into committees. I'm on the outreach committee, so I've been doing a lot of research and things on organizations that I think we can get into and really help. And I hope that, and I know that St. Peter's, they're a great service-oriented church, and I think we can do a lot of good things for the city of St. Louis if we, realize that we're all in community together. It's just not Ladue community.
So Jimmy, just keep the mic, and we'll just pass it back down this way. I want to ask each of you, if you would, just to take a moment and say a little bit about how it is that you became involved in a couple of you have begun to touch on that, but how is it that you became involved in ministry here, and why you stay involved? How you became involved and why you stay involved?
I think the why is just because I think I saw a need of just the little things I do. I wanted to just give back to do something. I knew I could probably read. I wanted to get my fear of public speaking out of the way, so that's why I started reading. And then just whenever there's a need, I just always just kind of want to reach out. I think a lot of people, I think we show how great we are as a community whenever, the blood drive. I think it just shows, how we can all come together. The reason I stay in, I think, is just because I love this community and I want to just see it thrive. And as much as I can do for the community, I just want to keep on keeping on,
So my story is similar to Jimmy's. I just grew up this. It was modeled by my parents. The first thing I did here, as I mentioned before, was in the choir, and then I think Luke asked me to be a diocesan delegate. And so as they got to know me and I got to know them, then they started asking more. I was invited to be a part of the vestry. And then before coming to St. Peter's, in a previous life down in Georgia, I was a parish administrator for St. Philip's Cathedral. And so with that, there's just this awareness of all that needs to happen to make church happen and to make community happen. It doesn't happen on its own. And I just want to chip in and help that happen. I want to be a part of that because it enriches my experience, and then hopefully other people benefit from some of my contributions, but it's just kind of ingrained in me, that lean in, don't expect things to be done for you. If you can do it, and if you have the skills, or if it's something you want to develop, get involved and start working on it. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
So I was thinking Anne's the only, I think, cradle Episcopalian on the panel. I grew up Presbyterian. My parents are very involved in the church, always have been. So again, like others on the panel, I saw that kind of active service modeled for me. My husband is Catholic, grew up Catholic, so we felt like we looked at Presbyterian churches, all sorts of churches, and then when we came to this church, we were like, kind of like Dwayne said, yep, this is it. We could see ourselves coming here, and it's been great for both of us. We started coming on Sundays. I was just like, every time I would leave, I was like, I just feel like my cup gets fuller, more full when I'm here and then when I walk out. And so I just kept, I would read the Rock and see things that were going on. I remember one of the things I did was an event at the Urban League with Alan Ivy. I think it was right before Thanksgiving or Christmas, right before Christmas, just a food drive. So I kept doing kind of one-off things like that. So that, and then some young adults, fun, Friendsgiving type things. And then the blood drive, just anytime I saw I can kind of plug in here and participate. And then I remember it was maybe January or February, and I got a call from Dwayne saying, would you want to serve on the vestry? And I was just like, are you guys sure you want me to do it? I would love to. I'm so excited. I'd love to do it. And then just my involvement has taken off from there. I joined breakfast team, and just I feel like the longer I'm here, the more I start to identify what that slide said, where my skills fit, where I can give. My girls love it here. Granted, they come they love that they remember the fun days where the bubble bus is out, the ice cream sandwiches. I'm like, they love it. So I feel like there's new opportunities. Like Dwayne said, you can serve in one way and then change it up, right, and serve in a different way. But it's just been really fulfilling to me personally, to my family. What keeps me is the people that I've met. St. Peter's is so amazing because there's just so many great people with really interesting backgrounds. I feel like I've had just great conversations with people. I've met just really, really great friends. So, yeah.
My emphasis has always been on children's ministry. And that certainly started when our kids were little. I taught Sarah's class from kindergarten all the way up through 7th grade. I was a confirmation assistant for 4 years. It's been something that's really been so important to me, to make sure that the children were welcomed here, that they had a good education, that there were so many things for them to do, all the community service activities that we did. Over the years, I've been in charge of 8 Christmas pageants, which is just such a blessing. I actually, for every Christmas pageant, I wrote down things that the kids said or did, or, that things that seemed insurmountable at the time of a child throwing up. When you look back on it now, it's funny.
I'm sure it wasn't.
And I did 8 vacation Bible schools as well, and same thing. It was really just a joy. It's a lot of planning. It's a week of just nonstop energy, but I wanted to make sure that there was a continuity, that the children were learning important things about the church, and again, how to community service was so important in VBS. And then, of course, I had the great joy of being on the staff. There was someone who took the place of being the director of Christian education, and after a year, I think it was too much. She had too many things going on, and I had felt that it had been advertised, the position, and I thought, I should have spoken up. So when she decided to retire after a year, I called Luke and I said, I think this is something that I'd like to do. And he said, great, you're hired. And I said, don't you need a reference or something? You want to see your resume? He said, nope. He said, I'm just delighted that you want to do it. So it's, gosh, what an amazing thing that was to be on the staff and to get to work with Jacqueline and David and Luke and Carol Lyons. It was really just such a joy. And then, of course, right before COVID, I decided at age 74 that it was probably a good idea for me to retire. But I've missed it, and I think David knew that because he asked me to come back for vacation Bible school last summer. But it's always been a joy to be around children, to just take part in their education and their faith, their growing faith in the church.
Just pass it back down to Jimmy. I'm fairly certain there has to be a little niche in heaven carved out for someone who can do 8 children's Christmas pageants. So, say a little bit about how your ministry is or has drawn you closer to God and to other people.
Let me see. I think just being in service, you feel like it's bigger than you. So you have so you have something that is larger than you. You aren't just thinking of yourself, I would say. Repeat it, por favor, on the question again.
In what ways is or has your ministry drawn you closer to God and to other people?
Okay. And, well, I think to other people, I think just being in service, I think it just makes me feel better. I think I do bring joy to people when I'm here. Ann has told me a few times that I guess I bring joy when I'm here. But I just feel better. I feel more spiritual. I feel more alive when I'm helping people. Whenever I miss church or being in community, I feel like I didn't succeed or I didn't get all I needed to out of that week, I think. Even if it just, if I just go to Bible study and I miss church, it's like, well, at least I got the word or something. I come to men's breakfast. If it's just I attend, on Tuesdays and what have you, at least you're in community. You feel like, you were doing something for the betterment of society, I guess.
So I think for me, it's that sense of connectedness you get by being involved, that it makes at least for me, makes everything richer, that you experience. And then just learning and understanding how things work and being in leadership during the pandemic and Luke leaving and all of that, it really increased, I hope, my kindness to other people, because, crazy things were happening. It was a stressful thing, and you see the good, the bad, and the ugly during those times more so. And, I really started having this mantra of seeing Christ in everyone. And when we say everyone's welcome at All Saints, at St. Peter's, that really means everyone, even if you don't like them, even if they drive you up the wall. They're still a child of God. And just trying to see that and go back to that again and again and again when I wanted to, rip my hair out or, just be really, and I think probably the vestry saw the mask slip a few times, but just trying to be a kinder person and just really being patient and as loving as you could be, because you never know what someone's carrying in life and you never know where their fear and their anxiety, and even if they're mean, like you just don't know where that's coming from. So just try to love them to death, and hopefully they'll come around, or at least you'll find a common place to stand and work through it, because at the end of the day, we all love this place. And I want us to get through it together. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's kind of my take on it.
What was the exact question? One more time.
The question is, how is it that your ministry has enabled you to draw closer to God and to other people?
So, and again, it was on one of the slides, as Christians, we're called to, everywhere we are, right, represent God and wherever you are, and so I feel like that's a tall order for being a human, right? So I think going to church, I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to fulfill the duty of wherever I am representing Christ, and so coming to church, I feel like it's like I'm always learning, trying to get better. I feel like church for me is like kind of self-actualization as you go through life, responding to stress and just tough life situations. I feel like it gives me peace. It keeps me grounded. In navigating life, honestly. In terms of connectedness to other people, I feel like I learn from others many times by their example. So Ann Babington stepping up, there was no one to do vacation Bible school, and she's like, I'll do it. Watching Dwayne lead through that challenging time, like the resilience, learning that things aren't always, perfect, or things are really messy. You just step in, and, it's a really I think, great example of how you should, live life. So, just walking in today, I looked at the steeple and I saw the sun, hitting the steeple, and just like, it's just a lovely, lovely place, I think, to be. And coming here just makes me feel better, quite simply. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Anne.
It's lovely. Well, I think I just have approached things here just really from a basic level. When you have to write and design a curriculum for children all about parables, you learn them really well. And I think that says a lot about me, that it's easier. I really enjoy teaching children. So, and when you learn things kind of at their basic level, it's wonderful to see how much they remember. And it increases my faith, definitely. When we started Children's Chapel, Luke's idea was to have just a 10-minute chapel. I said, I don't see how that's going to work. But it did. And we have, if you all ever have a chance, it's up in Grace Chapel at 10:15. And it's so sweet. There's just this wonderful confession. You do the 5-finger prayer. In 10 minutes, really, it's just your whole faith wrapped up in just that abbreviated version. And it's lovely. And my parents are in the columbarium. This is the only church really I've ever known. So it means a great deal to me.
What's your favorite parable?
Oh, the Good Samaritan. And I think what I said about Jimmy is that he gives the best hugs.
He does. He really does.
So my final question for you is that you all are involved in a variety of ministries. And sometimes I think we make the assumption that everyone knows what it means to be on the vestry or to be part of St. Peter's Care. So I'm going to ask each of you to just say something about one of the ministries that you're involved in. So Jimmy, would you say something about the ministry of being a lector and what's involved in that and what that looks like?
Well, if you're the second lector, you just have to be able to read the Nicene prayer and then follow the prayers of the people. So there you go. But no. No, the first lector, it's scary. You have to...
Hey, Jimmy, let me stop you. Just start with, what is a lector?
Okay. What is a lector? A lector is someone who gets up in front of everyone and they read the lessons. Uh-huh. And then also, it really is a really important time to read the Nicene prayer. So, is that what a lector is? All right. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. I think other people should get involved in lecturing. Okay. There you go.
Dwayne, would you say something about the vestry?
Sure. So the vestry is really sort of serves is like the board of a corporation, but instead of that, you're the leaders of the church. You're really responsible for the business aspects, the buildings and grounds, everything really but the spiritual direction that the priest is in charge of. So it allows you to really be involved in many different ways in things that you are passionate about at the church or things that you want to be better at. You have that levity, and something that's really exciting that David is doing now that we're back to more normal times is really allowing people to align on different committees of where their true passion is and allowing them to connect to the parish in that way. So we meet once a month, usually. I don't know if that's, and then of course we review the financial documents. We have various business things that we go through. And one of the big things when I was on vestries, we're also doing a rector search, and we got to call David here. And so you never know what you might be involved in. but it's just you're that official kind of governing body of the parish. And so depending on what's going on, it can be a very small commitment or it can be a very large commitment, just depending on what's happening in the parish. But it's a good way to really learn and understand all of the inner workings of what it takes to make church happen. And I'll just put in a quick, so guys can be on Altar Guild. That people don't think that. And it's funny, Altar Guild is kind of the ministry work that I treasure the most. I just love that quiet time before, after the service, of just preparing the altar, putting those things away after the service. It's probably the most spiritually connected work I do, and it's so easy. But it's something that I really treasure. So we need more help on the Altar Guild. So if you're so inclined, come on.
While you're on a roll about the Altar Guild, just go ahead and describe a little bit more about what the Altar Guild is and what the responsibilities are.
So the Altar Guild is really responsible for preparing the altar mainly and the chancel area for worship. So we hang the hangings that go on the pulpit, the lectern. We put the altar cloth on the altar. If the candles are too short, we replace the candles. If the silver needs polishing, we do that. But we put out the wafers and the wine and all of that, and just get it ready for David to do his magic before we take it. So, and then afterwards we clean it and put it all away. And it's just something very simple. It takes 15 minutes max, and it just, like I said, it's holy for me. It's some of my I'm more of a Martha type, so I just am going to be busy until Jesus comes. But that's a chance that I get to be still for the most part and just reflect on what all of that means and how we're all brought together in one community with Christ through the communion. So it's special for me.
So Claire is a new member of the breakfast team.
Yes.
And I think your first day on the
Yes.
breakfast team. Say a little bit about that.
Sure. So Chris Knight made it so easy. He was like, hey guys, here's what we're gonna do for breakfast team. Everything is spelled out. You made it so easy. So thank you for that. You show up at between 7 and 7:15. They have laminated cards of here's how you make the bacon, here's how you make the eggs, here's how you make the cheese grits, here's when you put the
Mark can do it.
here's when you put the biscuits in. It is just and then you get to talk while you're cooking breakfast. You get to know your parishioners, fellow parishioners while you're making breakfast. It's a longstanding tradition here, so you feel kind of like you're honoring that and bringing people together. And everyone should sign up for the breakfast team, right? Yeah, Chris will send you an email and you can get on the list. So, really fun.
Well, and this year, Chris, there were 40? 37 people who.
At this point, it is over 40 because we're keep getting emails. We just don't have any dates until after the first of the year. So hang in there, we'll get you.
Yeah.
And then Ann, you've mentioned a few things about this, but would you say a little bit more about not only just children's formation, but formation generally, and also about the baptismal preparation work that you do?
When I was director of Christian education, I designed a curriculum for the children about baptism. So when we had a baptism on Sunday morning, after Sunday school, we'd come up, they'd all gather around the baptismal font. Parents would have to step over them to be up there for the baptisms. And we talked about water and light and the Paschal candle and how people should see the light of Christ in you through your eyes. Just, simple things that the kids could take with them. And then I was asked to continue with that idea, doing baptism prep. So I meet with families who are having a child baptized, and we usually meet for about an hour. And I have an adult curriculum also that we go through. And we talk about all those things, what they should look for, the things that were brought to this St. Peter's from the old St. Peter's down at Spring and Lindell, the Crux Lux Cross and the meaning of all that, the baptismal font. And during COVID, we met by Zoom, and now it's really nice because I have a chance to meet with the families in person again. So often we'll meet out in the garden, and I love that because it's all these new young families that are coming to St. Peter's and how much the church means to them, or their families who maybe live in different cities and their grandparents are here. So they've come back to St. Peter's, the church that they grew up in, to have their children baptized. So it doesn't take much time, but I think it's a wonderful connection for parents to have that hour to talk about baptism and the meaning of it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. You all have been wonderful. I hope this has given you a little more insight into not only some of what happens here at St. Peter's, but the opportunities that are available for all of us to consider being part of. And again, thank you all very much for your participation and for being willing. And they didn't know the questions in advance either, so they did really well. Before we go, I want to put in a plug for next week. Some of you have met or have heard of Pastor Andre Alexander, who is a pastor of a church in the North City, and who also has been responsible for opening a community center there. Pastor Andre is going to be our guest preacher next Sunday. And he'll also be featured here in the forum. It'll be a chance to learn a little bit more about the great work that he and his and others have done that we have been part of here at St. Peter's through conversations that have taken place between some members of our church and his church, but also through a bridge loan that our vestry agreed to make about almost a year and a half ago, I guess now, as to help with to allow the center to go ahead and be opened in advance of some grant money being awarded. So I just encourage you and invite you to come and to be part of that next Sunday. Thank you for being here today. God bless you.
Thank you.